वेलकम चैम्प्स टू इंग्लिश का पोटली एंड आई एम अभिजीत। आज हम लोगों क्या करेंगे? आज हम लोगों करेंगे जूलियस सीजर एक्ट 1 सीन 2 का वर्कबुक का जो बाकी का जो आंसर है उसको करेंगे। मेरा इसका पार्ट 1 वीडियो भी है जहां पर हम लोगों एक्सट्रैक्ट 4 तक का आंसर्स हम लोगों कर चुके हैं और इसका लिंक मेरा डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में आपको मिल जाएगा। और मैं जूलियस सीजर के लिए सेपरेट सा प्लेलिस्ट बना के रखा हूं, आप वहां पर जाके भी सर्च कर सकते हैं रिगार्डिंग द पार्ट 1 ऑफ दिस वीडियो। आज हम लोग एक्सट्रैक्ट नंबर 5 से शुरू करेंगे आज का क्लास। चलो शुरू करते हैं चैम्प्स, मजे से करेंगे क्लास आज का। चलो, और ये जितना भी आंसर्स है ना, ये सब आंसर्स आपको वर्कबुक सॉल्व करने के लिए बहुत काम आएगा। चलो कम ऑन, लेट अस स्टार्ट विद द क्लास टुडे। सी चैम्प्स, दिस इज द एक्सट्रैक्ट 5। क्वेश्चन नंबर 5 है, दिस इज अ Cassius speech is there. I know not that virtue to be new Brutus, as well as I do know your outward favor. Well, honor is the subject of my story. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had a live not to be, as live to be, in awe of such a thing as I myself. तो चैम्प्स ये लाइन नंबर 90 से 96 में आपको मिल जाएगा। और इसका क्वेश्चन, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है, वेयर वॉज ब्रूटस एंड केशियस इज एट दिस टाइम। तो यू सी यहां पर आंसर है, एट दिस टाइम ब्रूटस एंड केशियस आर एट अ पब्लिक प्लेस इन रोम नियर टू वेयर द रेसेस ऑन द फीस्ट ऑफ ल्यूपरकल आर बीइंग हेल्ड। तो इसका करीब में फीस्ट ऑफ ल्यूपरकल का रेस हो रहा था। इसका सेकेंड पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन है, व्हाट इज केशियस पर्पस इन दिस स्पीच। यहां पर केशियस का पर्पस क्या है? केशियस पर्पस इज टू रोज द कंसाइंस ऑफ ब्रूटस। तो यहां पर क्या है ना, केशियस का जो पर्पस है, तो रोज द कंसाइंस। कंसाइंस मतलब क्या? व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ कंसाइंस चैम? कंसाइंस का मीनिंग है इनर सोल, इनर थॉट। माने कि ब्रूटस का इनर थॉट को एराइज करना चाह रहा था, माने उनका खुद का सोच को रेस करना चाहता था, सो दैट द लैटर वुड बी प्रिपेयर टू ज्वाइन द कॉन्स्पिरेसी। He knows that Brutus values honor more than he fears death. So he is very much acquainted with this fact that Brutus honors value more than he fears death. Cassius plays on this love of honor that Brutus has and cleverly suggests that he, Cassius himself, would be preferred to die rather than live in fear and shame under the tyranny of Caesar. Caesar का tyranny में वो जिंदा रहना नहीं चाहते। Okay, champs. Now the second question, give the meaning of, but for my single self, I had as live not be as live to be, in awe of such a thing as I myself. By these words, Cassius wants to say that for himself, means as far as he is concerned, personally honor is more important than life itself. If he cannot live with dignity, if he has to live in fear of others, especially in fear of such a ignoble creature, means ignoble creature as Caesar himself, he would prefer to end his life. Actually, तो ये क्यों कर रहा है? You know, Cassius ये क्यों कर रहा था? Actually, he is trying to incite Brutus against Caesar. Caesar का माने against में Brutus को incite करने का कोशिश कर रहा था, by insinuating that if Brutus does not join him to fight against Caesar, it would prove that Brutus is not a lover of freedom and honor, but a coward who prefers to live in slavish fear under Caesar's tyranny and oppression. Okay, Stamps? तो ये है आपका सेकेंड क्वेश्चन का आंसर। थर्ड क्वेश्चन है, गिव टू इंसिडेंट्स व्हिच Cassius uses later in discussion to indicate that Caesar was as weak as any human being. Okay, चलिए इसका आंसर है, to indicate that Caesar was as weak as any human being, Cassius relates to incidents. तो Cassius दो इंसिडेंट को रिलेट करते हैं। ठीक है, एक इंसिडेंट है, at first he narrates, पहले वो क्या नरेट करते हैं? He narrates how once on a raw and gusty day when the troubled Tiber was chafing with her shores, Caesar challenged him to leap into an angry flood. तो सीजर ने तब उनको चैलेंज किया, भाई ऐसा एंग्री फ्लड है, क्या आप इस टाइबर रिवर में जंप करेंगे? टाइबर तो रिवर है, आपको पता ही होगा चैम्प्स। अगर ये सब पता नहीं है आप लोगों, मेरा जो वीडियोस है ना, उसको थोड़ा वॉच कीजिए और अपना टेक्स्ट बुक्स का साथ वो वीडियोस को मिला के पढ़िए। एक्ट 1 सीन 2 का मैं फुल एक्सप्लेनेशन 2 पार्ट में दे के रखा हूं। यू जस्ट गो थ्रू दैट वीडियोस, ओके। अच्छा मार्क्स मिलना है लेकिन चैम्प्स, ये बात याद रखना, और मुझे श्योर, आई एम वेरी मच श्योर कि आप लोगों ने अच्छा मार्क्स जरूर लाएंगे। यू ऑल विल स्कोर गुड मार्क्स। And so Caesar challenged him to leap into the flood and swim to yonder point. Accordingly, fully dressed as he was, माने केशियस पूरा उसी तरह का जैसे ड्रेस्ड थे वैसा ही ड्रेस में वो क्या किया, he plunged in with Caesar close at his heels. They fought bravely against the violent waves. Violent waves का साथ बहुत युद्ध करते हैं, means they fought bravely with the waves. But before they could reach the point proposed, Caesar started screaming for help. Okay, Caesar started screaming for help as he was drowning, and Cassius had to carry on his shoulders the tired Caesar from the waves of the Tiber. ये एक तो इंसिडेंट है। Now Cassius then describes the second incident. ये second incident क्या था? Caesar once had a fever when he was in Spain. He was suffering from that. While suffering from that fever, Caesar started shaking violently, and the color vanished from his covered lips. Even his terror-inspiring eyes lost their luster. Luster, you know, champs, इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब है shine, glaze. Okay, champs? Then he started to groan. तब वो रो रहे थे and cried out helplessly as a sick girl. एक sick girl का जैसा helplessly he was crying, begging, Titanius, give me some drink. Titanius सिर्फ सीजर का सर्वेंट होते हैं, तो उनका पास मांगते हैं कि भाई मुझे कुछ ड्रिंक दे दीजिए, प्लीज, आई वांट टू ड्रिंक समथिंग, एंड दैट वन ही वाज क्राइड जस्ट लाइक अ हेल्पलेस गर्ल। ओके चैम्प्स, नाउ दिस इज द फोर्थ क्वेश्चन। What happens immediately after Cassius' speech? How does it help Cassius to rouse the feelings of Brutus against Caesar? चलो चैम्प्स इसको देखते हैं। Immediately after Cassius' speech, there is a flourish of trumpets. बहुत जोरों का flourish of trumpets, शहनाई बजता है, and a second shout is heard. तो फिर दूसरे बार एक चीख का साउंड सुनाई पड़ता है चैम्प्स. There is a second sound is heard, provoking Brutus into exclaiming another general shout. Brutus then remarked that he believes those applause are to indicate that some new honors are being heaped on Caesar. तो ये ब्रूटस बता देते हैं this one. Already Brutus was unhappy with the first shout heard earlier in the scene. पहला वाला shout से ही unhappy थे, as it signified to him that probably the people are choosing Caesar as their king. मतलब यहां से क्या पता चलता है चैम्प्स कि ब्रूटस को भी अच्छा नहीं लग रहा था कि पीपल सीजर को किंग चूज करे। नाउ फिर देखिए चैम्प्स, इसका सेकेंड पार्ट जो है इस क्वेश्चन का, हाउ डज इट हेल्प केशियस टू रोज द फीलिंग ऑफ ब्रूटस अगेंस्ट सीजर? तो यहां पर इसका देखिए आंसर क्या है। फ्रॉम ब्रूटस रिएक्शन केशियस अंडरस्टैंड्स। ओके, तो यहां पर देखिए फ्रॉम ब्रूटस रिएक्शन Cassius understands Brutus isn't comfortable with the idea of Caesar being crowned or being bestowed in too many honors. He therefore continues his tirade against Caesar, comparing him to the gigantic statue of Colossus Apollo at the entrance to the harbor at Rhodes. इसका बारे में आपको मिल जाएगा टेक्स्ट में. And the Romans to the punished ships they have to pass dishonorably between the huge legs of Colossus. He even suggests that if they were living as underlings means you know champs, इसका मतलब है slaves or servants. ठीक है, चलो, the fault is not in their stars. तो ये fault उनका stars में नहीं है। तो इससे क्या पता चलता है जानते हो चैम्प्स कि ये जो एलिजाबेथन एज में, ये विक्टोरियन एज में, मैंने पीपल दे यूज्ड टू बिलीव एस्ट्रोलॉजी, तो दैट इज वाई बार बार बोल रहा है The fault is not in their stars. Okay, ये fault उनका stars में नहीं है. Their misery and shame is not something predestined by the position of the stars when they were born, but in themselves, with underlying subtle hint that if they want to live as honorable Romans, they should rid themselves of Caesar. इसका मतलब अगर उन लोगों को honorable life चाहिए, they should get themselves rid of Julius Caesar. Follow champs? देखिए कम ऑन, अभी हम लोग फिफ्थ आंसर की तरफ चलते हैं। नाउ फिफ्थ क्वेश्चन जो है, What stand does Brutus take a few minutes later, which makes Cassius glad that his efforts have not been in vain? देखो चैम्प्स, तो इसका आंसर क्या है? A few minutes later, Brutus tells Cassius that he has no doubts about the latter's love, means attachment, loyalty to him. He admits he has, but by now some idea about Cassius's intentions in speaking thus to him. तो अभी क्या है ना, he admits, अभी ब्रूटस एडमिट करते हैं, he admits he has by now some idea about Cassius's intentions in speaking thus to him. He promises that later, means बाद में, when he will find suitable time, he will reveal to Cassius, मतलब Cassius को पास वो reveal करेंगे, he will reveal to Cassius how he himself has thought about such matters and such times as Cassius has stated. But for the time being, he would entreat Cassius not to urge him any further, with the promise that he would ponder over all that Cassius has said and find an appropriate time to hear out. माने किसी समय appropriately इनको सुनेंगे. Cassius patiently and also express his own feelings and opinions on such matters. He then asks Cassius to keep in mind that he, means Brutus, would rather be a villager, a country peasant, or one from the annexed provinces, and then call himself a Roman citizen under the oppression that he likely to come upon them if Caesar is crowned. Okay. Cassius is overjoyed on hearing these words of Brutus, and with pretended humility tells him he is glad that my weak words, means Cassius's weak words, have struck but thus much show of fire from Brutus. By now he feels certain Brutus will soon be fully in his trap. तो यहां से ये पूरा विश्वास कर लेते हैं कि ब्रूटस को मैंने पूरा से समझा पाया, and I am able to compel Brutus to enter into the group of conspirators. Okay, champs? चलो. Now this is the sixth extract, champs. Caesar का speech है. He reads much. He is great observer, and he looks quite through the deeds of men. He loves no plays as thou dost, Antony. He hears no music, seldom he smiles, and smiles in such a sort as if he mocked himself and scorned his spirit that could be moved to smile at anything. Such men as he never at heart's ease. तो इस तरह का आदमी कभी भी never at heart's ease, while they behold a greater than themselves. तो ये चैम से कहां पर मिलेगा? This is in line number 200. Okay, चलो. Let us proceed with the first question. Champs, क्या है first question? Where is Caesar at this time? तो आप लोगों को पता ही है, at this time Caesar is at a public place in Rome, near to where the races on the feast of Lupercal have just been held. Okay? Of whom he is speaking? किसके बारे में बात कर रहे थे Caesar? Champs, he and his train are in fact just returning from the games. तो ये Caesar is speaking of Caius Cassius, a bitter enemy of Caesar and the brain behind the conspiracy to murder him. ठीक है, ये कायस केशियस का बारे में बोल रहे थे, और ये आपको तो पता ही है, केशियस ने एक बड़ा सा कॉन्स्पिरेसी भी बना लिया, और तो अभी तो ब्रूटस को भी इन्वॉल्व कर लिया. यार मजा आएगा ये प्ले पढ़ते पढ़ते. कम ऑन, सेकंड क्वेश्चन. Do the earlier episodes in the play suggest that Caesar has judged his person's character accurately? Explain briefly. See, development in earlier parts suggests that Caesar has judged Cassius's character accurately, that Cassius is an extremely dangerous man, because such men are never at heart's ease, कभी भी वो satisfied नहीं रहते, never at peace, when they behold a greater than themselves. In first part of the scene, we saw Brutus and Cassius in conversation, when very deviously Cassius managed to poison Brutus's mind against Caesar. At times, they tried to show Caesar as a weakling who did not deserve greatness. Okay? Whereas, by contrast, Brutus was highly admired and respected by the Romans. He expressed his bitterness against Caesar and painstakingly tried to convince Brutus that the only way to save themselves from Rome themselves and the Romans from the shame, fear, and the tyranny of Caesar was to get rid of him. पहले Caesar से छुटकारा पाना पड़ेगा. He cunningly proved that Brutus was as worthy as if not worthier than Caesar. तो वो ब्रूटस को ये समझाते हैं कि सीजर और ब्रूटस दे आर बोथ वर्दी, नो लेस वर्दी. चलो थर्ड क्वेश्चन में लेट अस मूव. Immediately before this speech, what type of man has Caesar said he prefers? Immediately before this speech, इसका पहले ही Caesar has said that he would prefer to have round him sleek-headed, means men with hair smooth, glossy, and well combed, and not those with shaggy, means dirty, uncombed, unkept hair, as well as those who sleep at night, and not those who spend sleepless nights planning and plotting evil against others. So he would not like to have with him men who have a lean and hungry, means a mean, deceitful, dangerous look, like Cassius, as such men think too much and so are very dangerous. तो इस तरह का व्यक्ति लोग बहुत डेंजरस होते हैं, बहुत ज्यादा सोचते हैं, एंड दे आर वेरी डेंजरस. चलो चैम्प्स फोर्थ क्वेश्चन में प्रोसीड करते हैं. चलो फोर्थ क्वेश्चन है, व्हाट पर्सनल फिजिकल वीकनेस इज रिवील्ड बाय सीजर इन रिमेनिंग पार्ट ऑफ हिज स्पीच. ओके, फिजिकल वीकनेस का बारे में क्या पता चलता है हमको रिमेनिंग पार्ट ऑफ द स्पीच में. तो ये है फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन में क्या है, इन द रिमेनिंग पार्ट ऑफ द स्पीच सीजर रिवील्स अ पर्सनल फिजिकल वीकनेस, इज डेफ ऑफ वन ईयर, मतलब उनका लेफ्ट ईयर वो डेफ थे. ही आस्क्ड Mark Antony to come on my right, for this ear is deaf. तो इसका पार्ट 2 क्वेश्चन है, व्हाट कंट्रास्ट इज क्रिएटेड बाय हिज रेवलेशन विद द लास्ट 2 लाइंस कोटेड अबव. देखो भाई यहां पर क्या बोल रहा है, इन द लास्ट 2 लाइंस ऑफ द एक्सट्रैक्ट सीजर टेल्स एंटोनी दैट cynical jealous characters like Cassius are never at their hearts is, means they are not at all fully contented when they see someone greater than themselves, okay, meaning Caesar himself. This statement shows that Caesar considers himself, okay, तो Caesar अपने आप को considers himself as a great personality, also defying himself. But the next admission that he is deaf is one ear very much humanizes him, making him appear a weakling like any other human being. Okay, champs? See the fifth question. Give 2 other examples of Caesar's physical weakness mentioned earlier in this scene. To indicate Caesar as weak as human being, Caesar's earlier in the scene related 2 incidents. Okay, Caesar का 2 incident का बारे में हम लोगों को पता चलता है. The first one, on a raw and dusty wind. Okay, raw and dusty wind, when the troubled Tiber was chafing with her shores, Caesar challenged him to leap into the angry flood. तो Caesar challenge करते हैं कि angry flood में jump करने के लिए and swim to yonder point. Accordingly, what happened? Fully dressed as he was, he plunged in with Caesar close at his heels. They fought bravely against the violent waves, but before they could reach the point proposed, Caesar started screaming for help. Caesar जोर जोर से बचाओ बचाओ करके चीखते हैं as he was drowning, and Cassius had to carry on his shoulders the tired Caesar. तो Cassius को क्या करना पड़ता है, tired Caesar को अपना शोल्डर में लेके चलते हैं from the waves of Tiber. Cassius also described how Caesar once had a fever. तो Caesar को एक बार fever होता है when he was in Spain. While suffering from the fit of fever, Caesar started shaking violently and the color vanished from his covered lips. Even his terror-inspiring eyes lost their luster. He started to groan and cried out helplessly as a sick girl, begging Titanius to give me some drink. Okay? So this is the thing. अब चलो 7th extract में चलते हैं चैम्प्स. कैस्का का स्पीच है. कैस्का स्पीच दिस वन. मजा तो आ रहा है ना, ये क्वेश्चन आंसर्स को वर्कबुक में आप लोगों ने लिखिए, इसको बार बार प्रैक्टिस करिए भाई. अच्छा मार्क्स तो स्कोर करना ही पड़ेगा. क्या आप लोग मेरा साथ नहीं देंगे? आई रियली एक्सपेक्ट दैट यू विल स्कोर गुड मार्क्स. चलो यार बहुत बात कर देता हूं मैं. चलो. कैस्का Now, I could not tell more news to, sorry, Casca. I could tell you more news too. Marulus and Flavius for pulling scarves of Caesar's images are put to silence. Fare you well. There was more foolery yet, if I could remember it. Okay, lines 283 to 287 tak hai. First question, when does Casca say this to whom? Casca says this during his conversation with Brutus and Cassius as Caesar in his train leave the scene. Casca is pulled by the sleeve by Brutus and so remains back. He is then questioned by them about the incidents at the games after he gives, in his sour fashion, a detailed account of the events. He is asked about Cicero. Okay, Casca pleads helplessly to give details about Cicero's behavior and words, as Cicero had spoken in Greek and he, Casca, knows no Greek. It is at this stage that Casca speaks the words quoted above. तो ये टू whom किसका साथ कैस्का बात कर रहे थे? कैस्का addresses these words to Cassius as the latter has just asked him what Cicero had spoken as reaction to Caesar being offered the crown and Caesar's fainting. As Brutus is also present, these words are addressed also to Brutus. तो ये सब Brutus के लिए भी था. These words are also meant for Brutus also. Followed, champs? Now, second question है, narrate briefly the news that Casca has already related. Casca जो news relate करते हैं उसको narrate करने के लिए कहा गया है. Casca has already given a detailed account of various developments that took place at the games. Okay, he said that Mark Antony had offered Caesar a crown, but it was pushed away by Caesar with the back of his hand. Okay, at which people fell a shouting. Casca sarcastically commented that it appeared to him Caesar would feign to have it gladly accept. माने Caesar accept करना चाहते थे. The crown was then offered a second time and Caesar pushed it away once again, but he seemed to very loath to lay, माने वो unwilling थे, very loath to lay his fingers off. When Antony offered it at the third time, Caesar put it the third time by. Each time Caesar pushed away the crown with the back of his hands, he did so gentler than the other at every putting by. The rabblement hooted and clapped their chopped hands and threw up their sweaty nightcaps, uttered such a deal of stinking breath just because Caesar had refused the crown that it almost choked Caesar, so that he swounded, means he fainted and fell down. When Caesar regained consciousness, he turned to the people around him and told them that if he had done so or said anything amiss, means कुछ अगर गलत कहते हैं या कुछ गलत किए हैं, they would consider it as an infirmity. माने ये this is an infirmity, means because of his bad health, and forgive him for it. At this 3 or 4 wenches, means young women who were standing nearby, forgave him with all their hearts. But Casca added that if, तो उसका बाद Casca कहते हैं, added that there was no need to take any notice of this woman, as they would have done no less even if Caesar had stabbed their mothers to death. After that, Caesar accompanied his train, came away sad. Okay, so this is the thing. चलो चैम्प्स अभी थर्ड क्वेश्चन में चलते हैं. व्हाट इज द थर्ड क्वेश्चन? थर्ड क्वेश्चन है, explain pulling scarves of Caesar's images and put to silence. The phrase pulling Caesar's images referred to what the two Roman tribunes Flavius and Marulus planned to do at the end of the scene 1 in order to curb Caesar's power and ambition. The dishonor him on the occasion of his triumph return to Rome. They decided to chase away the rabblement from the streets and then disrobe Caesar's images wherever they found them decked with ceremonies, so that no images would be hung with Caesar's trophies. Okay, put to silence is a euphemism. Put to silence is a euphemism, or put to death, banished, dismissed from office. Casca utters these words to suggest that Caesar has put to death the two tribunes for daring to go against him. Now, the fourth question, what does put to silence reveal about Caesar's character? The words put to silence spoken by Casca reveal Caesar are ruthlessly in dealing with Romans in general and his opponents in particular. जो भी उनको oppose करते थे उनका साथ बहुत ही ruthlessly behave करते थे. Puffed up with pride of the victories over his enemies, he has ambitions to win over popular support and then aim for the throne of Rome. In that context, he will brook no interference and will deal mercilessly with anyone who tries to obstruct him from attaining his goal. कोई भी अगर उनका गोल में आएंगे, उनका रुकावट बनाएंगे तो उसको mercilessly, ruthlessly उसका साथ behave करेंगे. We can see Caesar, the tyrannical streak, which will soon provoke important Romans into forming a conspiracy to assassinate him. Now the fifth question, champs, what reason for their action did Flavius give in the opening of the play? In the opening scene of the play, Flavius tried to justify their action by telling Marulus that disrobing the images means अगर उन images से जितना भी decorations था वो सबको हटा दिया जाता would act as a check on Caesar's ambition as it would prevent the people from showing Caesar honor and respect. He explained that their action would be like plucking off the growing feathers from the wings of a bird. Such an action would make the bird fly an ordinary pitch so that it would not pose a threat to others. Similarly, Caesar was now soaring high on the wings of his ambition, aided by the respect, honor and support given by the people. If instead the people were not allowed to welcome Caesar, अगर Caesar को welcome नहीं करते, it would help to clip his wings of ambition. Otherwise, they all would have to live in fear like slaves. तो और बाकी सभी को slaves का जैसा रहना पड़ेगा. ठीक है चैम्स, तो ये है आपका 8th extract Cassius का speech है. I will this night in several hands in at his windows throws as if they had came from several citizens, writings all tending to great opinion that Rome holds of his name, wherein obscurely Caesar's ambition shall be glanced at. And after this let Caesar sit him sure, for we will shake him or worse days endure. This is in line number 315 to 322. चलो चैम्स, तो पहला क्वेश्चन को हम लोग पहले देखते हैं. When does Cassius speak these words? ये कहां पर ये बात हो माने कब ये बात कहते हैं? Who is he referring to in the second line? See, Cassius speaks these words at the end of Act 1, Scene 2, just after Brutus leaves the scene. Okay, before leaving, Brutus promised to meet Cassius the following day to continue their conversation regarding Caesar's ambition and their need to do something about it. Cassius is pleased as he has managed to incite Brutus against Caesar. तो Cassius तो बहुत ही खुश है. At the same time, he is amazed that such an honorable and noble character like Brutus would allow himself to be so easily influenced against his own dear friend Caesar, and comments that if he were in Brutus's place, he, means Cassius, would not allow others to incite him against his own friend. Whom is he referring to in the second line? ये आपका second part of the question है. The second line Cassius is referring to Marcus Brutus. ये Marcus Brutus को refer कर रहे हैं. Now let us go to the second question. What is the purpose of these writings? Where are these writings to be thrown? Okay. The purpose of these writings is to convince Brutus to wholeheartedly support the conspiracy that he, Cassius, is preparing against Caesar. During their earlier conversation, Cassius managed to rouse Brutus against Caesar by arguing about the potential danger to Romans posed by Caesar's ambition. As once Caesar is crowned, he might tyrannize the people, but Brutus is still hesitant. He is in two minds about the righteousness of the cause. So Cassius wants to ensure Brutus is fully won over and will not only join but also lead the conspiracy against Caesar. ओके, तो देखिए, वेयर आर दिस राइटिंग्स टू बी थ्रोन? दीज राइटिंग्स वेर टू बी थ्रोन इन द विंडोज ऑफ Brutus. In fact, in Act 1, Scene 3, Cassius instructs Cinna to place one letter in Parator's chair, where only Brutus will find it, throw under in at his window, and set up a third with wax upon old Brutus's statue. What effect is produced? Third question: what effect is produced on this person when he reads it? Okay. Brutus reads a letter brought to him by his servant Lucius in Act 2, Scene 1. It tells him he is asleep and asks him to wake up and see himself, provoking him to comment. Such instigations have been often dropped where I have looked upon. What puzzles him is the incomplete question, shall Rome, etc. Then he tries to piece together the apparent puzzle by filling in the blanks. He says, shall Rome stand under one man's awe? Okay. This in reality reveals his present frame of mind, provoking him to comment that just as one time my ancestors did from the streets of Rome, the Tarquin Drive, when he was called a king, he is now being asked to save Rome from the tyranny of Caesar. He makes a solemn pledge that he will speak and strike, and if the redress will follow, Rome will receive thy full petition at the hand of Brutus. These words clearly indicate that Brutus has finally made up his mind to join the conspiracy to assassinate Caesar and is fully prepared to face the consequences. कुछ भी consequences face करने के लिए पूरा prepared थे. Now this is the fourth question. Explain the meaning of several hands and obscurely. Several hand means different handwriting. ठीक है, अलग अलग handwriting में different. ठीक है, Cassius has planned to write the same letter in different handwriting to make it appear where they are written by different Roman citizens. Obscurely means secretly, indirectly, or in hidden, subtle manner. This word tells us about Cassius's will. In those letters, make very subtle hints about Caesar's ambition to become the king of Rome. This will infuriate Brutus so much that Caesar will not be able to save himself. चलो, fifth question क्या है? What aspect of Cassius's character do the above words illustrate? बहुत important है. The above words clearly reveal the deadly aspect of Cassius's character. He is so shrewd and cunning. बहुत ही shrewd था और cunning था. Once he decided on a project, he will find a way to accomplish it. कोई भी project अगर वो ठान लेता है इसे करना है, किसी भी तरह से उसको accomplish करेंगे. He has clearly assessed Brutus and realizes that the surest way to win over is to flatter him into thinking that the Romans regard him highly and look to him as their savior from Caesar's tyranny. He is so malicious that he feels no qualms of consequence about using any means or fair or foul. कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, कोई भी fair or foul कुछ भी utilize कर सकते हैं to just to accomplish his aim, to achieve his end, even if it means betraying a person who trusts him. कभी भी किसी को भी Cassius betray कर सकता है. Okay, चलो, this is the fifth question, champs. Give two methods used by Cassius to win over Brutus. Cassius uses three methods to win over Brutus. First one is, ये पहला वाला है, is the long conversation he has with Brutus in the earlier part of the scene, where he tries to project the danger of Caesar's ambition and reveal to Brutus sense of honor, dignity, and love for freedom of Rome, which will not allow him to stand passively and watch Caesar trying to trample upon the freedom of Romans. During this conversation, Cassius projects Caesar as a weakling who is unfit to become a king of Rome, and even flatters Brutus into thinking that he is worthier than Caesar with such honors. Next, he writes letters to Brutus in different handwritings to convince the latter the whole of Rome looks to him to speak. Okay, सभी रोमन्स चाहते कि ब्रूटस बात करे, स्पीक करे, स्ट्राइक एंड रेड्रेस इन ऑर्डर टू प्रोटेक्ट देम एंड देयर कंट्री फ्रॉम सीजर्स एम्बिशंस. Thirdly, Cassius and some of other conspirators visits Brutus in the middle of the night in Act 2, Scene 1 in order to convince him to join hands with them to put an end to the danger posed by Caesar. Follow champs? तो फिर चैम्प्स ये पार्ट 2 था, इसका पार्ट 1 का लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में ऑलरेडी है और आप लोगों को मैं पहले ही कहा हूं कि जूलियस सीजर का प्लेलिस्ट बना हुआ है, आप लोगों वहां पर जाके भी सर्च कर सकते हैं. भाई चैम्प्स, अभी समर सीजन है, समर वेकेशंस भी चल रहा है. आई थिंक मेनी ऑफ यू आर हैविंग समर वेकेशंस एंड आई थिंक मेनी स्कूल्स आर ओपनड आल्सो. भाई मन लगा के पढ़िए, दिलो जान से पढ़िए, एकदम ध्यान से पढ़िए. Go through the answers properly, write the answers properly, several times you write it, revise it, read the text properly. I am sure champs आप सभी अच्छी तरह से मार्क्स स्कोर करेंगे. ठीक है, ओके चैम्प्स, पढ़ाई लिखाई का साथ खेल कूद चलता रहेगा और अपना पेरेंट्स का भी बात जरूर सुनिएगा आप लोगों. देन टुडे बाय ऑल ऑफ यू, बाय टू ऑल माय चैम्प्स.